Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to do it's a spin on the book freakout, the mid-year book freakout tag thing. So I'm going to have some of the questions from that, but also we're just going to kind of look at some of my stats right now mid-year just to kind of like check in and everything. And then like I said, I'm going to use a couple of the questions from the freakout tag, not probably all of them. I know there's like other variations of different tags that different creators have done. So I'm just going to kind of do something along those lines too. There's a couple of questions that we're going to use from the original tag, but also, like I said, I'm just going to kind of like do this as like an update, a check-in kind of thing, and just kind of like share where I'm at in general with my reading. So with that said, let's start talking. So to start with, we're gonna just kind of like go over like the basic stats right now. So in total, I have read 90 books so far. Yes, that is a lot. To give you guys some clarity of how that's possible, because while I don't really care how many books a person reads in a year, I can definitely understand how someone can sit there and go, I don't understand how you've already read 90 books this year. Most of the books that I have read this year, a lot of them are about this big, because I have read way too many of this man's works. I am absolutely just in love with this man's work. Okay. And most of his books by today's standards would be classified as a novella. When these originally came out, they were classified as novels, and so they are still classified that way. But if this was released today, due to its page count, it'd be considered a novella. So a good chunk of what I have been reading today, or within the past couple of months, pretty much since May, have been novella sized. Roughly around the 150 to 200 pages. That's where a lot of my reading has fallen, and so that makes it very easy to kind of rack up a lot of books. And so when you just kind of look at a pile of them together, like you're like, yeah, that those take no time to read at all. For the most part, they take me about 2.5 hours to read. So it's like, yeah, cool. And a lot of them I will do the audiobooks with, because I absolutely love the guy that they hire to do the audiobooks, because he's got that, that grizzly older Western voice, and I'm just like, oh, this is perfect. It feels so immersive, because I feel like I'm hearing a story from some old Western, some old West timer guy. Yeah, I can put words together. But it's been a lot of that. Now, I have read some other books that are on the longer side. The longest book that I have read this year was actually so one of them ended up being a DNF, and that would have been 672 pages, but I did not finish that one. I think I only read about 100 pages of that before I DNF'd it. And then the one that I did finish was 529, and that was Red Winter, and we'll talk about that one later. I've read 90. Now, of those 90, 9 of them have been DNFs. And that is because I am a kind of person who will not hesitate to DNF a book. I don't have any qualms about not finishing books. I used to. When I first got back into reading, I had trouble not being able to not finish a book, but I have since learned that there's too many books in life to sit here and be like, I have to finish this terrible book. I have to finish this book I'm not enjoying. And so I will DNF freely. But I will say this is probably one of my better years, where the amount that I've DNF'd has been pretty low, because the past couple of years it's been pretty high. So 9 isn't bad. April was my biggest reading month, and that was actually, I thought I started reading Louis L'Amour in May, but it looks like I actually started reading him in April. And I read 28 books in April. A chunk of that being Louis L'Amour. Now, a lot of them, I will say, were his short stories, which are even shorter than even shorter than one of these, because that man had a million short stories, okay? And that was how I introduced myself to Louis L'Amour, was through his short stories. So that was how I was able to accumulate so much in 1 month. I think it's because there's so much like frustration around how someone can read so much in a short period of time. Like, I think it's imperative that like we at least explain how we're doing that, and like being transparent. Like, that's my thing. Like, I like to be transparent with you guys, and like if I say I read 28 books this month and 15 of those were short stories, like I'm going to tell you 15 of them were short stories, you know. The audiobook was an hour long. Like yeah, you get 8 of those. You can listen to 8 of those in a day. You know, that's 8 hours, you know? Like, it's not that it's not possible to read a lot in 1 month. It's just a matter of how you go about it. And for me, I like to be transparent about how I'm doing my reading. With that said, right now though, with April being my highest month, July is currently my lowest at 5 books. And that's okay. Honestly, that is a-okay. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've started playing video games a bit more. I did at the beginning of the month realize that I was already sitting at 90 books, and I was like, oh, that's that's a lot. That's a lot. I had actually planned to try and take my reading slower this year, but because I'm not as stressed all the time, it's easier for me to read now. And so I've just been picking them up one after the other. But in July, I have kind of backed off a little bit because, like I said, I've been playing my video games and I've been kind of immersing myself in that. And so I just, you know, reading took a back seat. And that's okay. It also doesn't help either that some of the books that I picked up outside of the Louis L'Amour's haven't been all that great. You know, so it's kind of like, oh, okay. So that's where we're sitting at with the month with the most reads and then the month with the least amount of reads. As for my average rating, we are currently sitting at a 3.2. A lot of the books I read are roughly around a 3-star range. And to me, that's an enjoyable book. A lot of people would disagree. I've seen some people, I think recently in the Discord server I'm in, how they rate books and whatnot. And a couple, like I've in there, I want to say I seen someone say something like if it's a 3-star, like I pretty much, like if I see it heading towards a 3-star, I just stop reading it kind of thing. And that's kind of like a sentiment I've seen in a lot of places on many different platforms. And for me, I'm like, 3-star is enjoyable. Like, it doesn't blow me away, but it also doesn't make me irrationally angry, like a 1-star tends to do. Like, to me, 3-star is a good, solid book. It was enjoyable. I had a good time with it. And that's all, you know? Like, I don't really have any complaints about it. And so for me, like, I don't mind reading a 3-star book. Like, a lot of my books pretty much average out at around a 3-star or 3.5, like, and I'm okay with that. Like, in order for a book to like really hit a 5-star for me, it has to really, really pull at like the emotional strings, or it just has to be so well plotted that I'm like, wow, this was insane. So this has actually been the year where I've given out the least amount of 5s, and I don't know if it's just because I've become more stingy with them or if it's because I've decided to like reevaluate how I even give stars out, because I did kind of like stop doing that partway through the year. And I had that whole video where I talked about moving away from a star rating system and just kind of doing I didn't like it, I liked it, I enjoyed it kind of thing. Like, just broke it down into like 3 very simplistic categories. And when I translate those into the star ratings for like Goodreads or something, a lot of them don't average out to be a 5. You know, and that's okay. As for the amount of pages I have read it, I have read it, guys. The amount of pages that I have read so far this year has been 8,260, which I think that's fine. You know, I think that's good. And as for audio, because I was planning on backing out of listening to audiobooks, but then I discovered the Louis L'Amour audiobooks, and like I said, I really like the way the guy reads them. And with those ones and then a couple of other books outside of Louis L'Amour, I have listened to over 246 hours of audiobooks. And a lot of you are probably sitting here going, well, that's why you've been able to read 90 books. Like, I'm not denying it. Yeah, yes. A good chunk of the books that I have read have been on audio. Like, I've said it numerous times in this video already that I really enjoy the audiobooks for Louis L'Amour's works because I like the narrator that they have chosen. Or they kind of have like a, there's one guy in particular that they use a lot, but then there's a couple of other guys who have been reoccurring as well. But they all have that good Western cowboy, older man kind of voice to it, and I love that, you know? Whereas there have been audiobooks that I have DNF'd, and, you know, it's because I didn't like the way the narrator read the book. You know, there's actually one I have a lot of beef with. But I also, for transparency, do not watch a lot of TV. I don't. I do not. While I may have a TV, I spend more time gaming on it than I do watching television. I don't have, the only subscription that I pay for is Crunchyroll, and I have a grandfathered account with Crunchyroll, so I pay a price that nobody else pays. And that's why I haven't gotten rid of it. But I also, the last time I watched anything on it, I think was like back in January, I watched something. But again, I'm not getting rid of it because of my grandfathered price that I have. And so that's the only like subscription service I pay for in regards to television. Because like we use YouTube, my daughter uses her father's Netflix account, and that's pretty much it. But also, she's not a big TV watcher either. She goes through phases. She goes through phases like I do, where all of a sudden I'll be hit with a bug to watch some TV, and then that bug will go away. And right now, if I am watching anything on TV, it's on Pluto TV, which is a free streaming service, and it is episodes of The Rifleman, which is an old Western TV series about a single dad raising his son in this tiny little town. Okay. But that's another reason why I'm able to read so much, listen to so much, is the fact that I don't really engage with television anymore because I find a lot of it pointless, to be honest. Netflix will create a new series and you're like, oh my god, this first season is so great, and they're like, guess what, cancel. Why would I invest my time? At least with my books, I can invest in like a trilogy and get the whole story, you know? So yeah, so those are the basic stats. Those are just the basic stats. So let's answer a few of these questions because I do see that this video is already a little bit long. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to talk so much. So let's see. What is the best book that you have read so far? All right, so the best book that I have read so far this year has been Down the Long Hills by Louis L'Amour. I love everything about this. It is the one Louis L'Amour book that has really just like, it is glued in my brain at this point. You follow a young boy and a even younger little girl who are left traveling on their own with this big beautiful horse, okay, trying to get to his father after their caravan has been massacred. And just seeing the way that this little boy knows how to survive, because this was a different time period. Kids were taught these things. They were taught how to build fires. They were taught how to hide their tracks. They were taught how to hunt. Like, this kid knew how to do all the things. And just seeing the story unfold around him and seeing him make these choices, but also seeing him have one of his hardest things that he couldn't do was explain to this 3-year-old little girl that they'd like never see their parents again. Like, the balance between these two things were so well done, and just I just loved every moment of this. And it's like I said, it's glued in here now. This is by far, of all the Louis L'Amours I've read so far, this one is my favorite. And I feel like it's one of the ones that really doesn't get a lot of attention because, you know, there's so many like tier lists out there, people being like his best works and everything. And I'm currently reading one that is considered like his number one. Like, I'm reading Hondo right now, and this is like the top of so many people's lists. And so I'm like, this book has a lot to live up to. But yes, This one right here, this has been my absolute favorite so far this year. I love this one. If there's a Louis L'Amour book you're gonna read, I say read this one, okay? Let's see. Haven't really read any sequels, so we're not gonna touch that question. Is there a new release that you haven't read yet, but you're really excited for? I'll be honest with you guys, I haven't really been paying attention to new releases. I really could not tell you guys if there was a new release that I was interested in, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, and I really, I'll be honest with you guys, don't feel like researching it right now. So I don't really think there is, and a lot of it just has to do with like the stuff that comes out right now. It's like, I just seen one earlier this morning where like the first like 4 paragraphs in the synopsis sounded so interesting, and then that last paragraph hit where it was like, will their love be able to, okay, everything else goes out the window now because it's clearly a romance book. Okay, never mind, not interested. So I'm finding that to be like my biggest issue with a lot of books right now. Let's see, I don't have any anticipated releases for the second half of the year because once again, I'm not paying attention to new releases. Your biggest disappointment so far. That one actually goes to, and I talked about this one a little bit earlier, The Red Winter by, what is his name? I want to get it correct because I don't want to say the wrong name. Let's see. Red Winter, Cameron Sullivan. This was a huge, huge disappointment. I went into this book thinking I was going to get this really great tragic love story that involved werewolves, and instead I got a boring, almost non-existent love story, which they tried to give you the tragedy, but because they did very little effort into like actually making you believe these two people were in love and not just lusting after each other and banging at every second that they could possibly bang, the tragedy didn't hit for me, which was the biggest reason I picked it up, because as weird as this is gonna sound, I love a tragic romance story. I love when it ends in tragedy because the build up to the tragedy is what makes you want the romance, because they know how to sell it. And unfortunately, Sullivan did not sell this, okay? And then there was also just these very unnecessary lewd moments that I was just like, was this necessary? Was it? Did I have to know that the werewolf wanted to rub a hard one out? I didn't. I didn't. This does nothing narratively for the story. Like, what was, besides make me go, oh, you know? And then the side characters I didn't care for. I didn't care for the whole demon living in the guy's head, which is crazy because one of my favorite book series is Penrick and Desdemona, a man who has a demon living in his head. Like, hello? So there was just so many things that on paper I was like, oh my God, I'm going to love this book. It's going to be my favorite. But in the execution, fell flat, unfortunately. And that is my biggest disappointment because of, at the beginning of the year, when I did have a list of new releases, that was one of them. I had even had the arc for it. I had been approved for it last year. So it being a disappointment was a big deal for me. Let's see, biggest surprise so far. I'm actually just going to make this into a broad one, and I'm pretty sure some of you can already tell what the answer is going to be. It's going to be Louis L'Amour in general. His books have been a huge surprise for me. Like, I have fought with myself over the past couple of years to give Westerns a try, because if there's one thing about me is I love broadening my reading spectrum, and I love trying different genres. And Westerns have always kind of been there in the background. I grew up with my father who watches Westerns. He is a big John Wayne fan, and so Westerns have always been integrated into my life in some form, okay? And as a reader, I was like, well, I mean, I kind of wonder what's up with these little Western books, you know? And every time you would go to the used bookstore, he would just have this crazy amount of books on shelves, because this man was a machine. And so I finally made that plunge this year, and I decided to give his stuff a try because I started with the short stories, and for me, it's been fabulous. it's been the biggest surprise. The fact that I have fallen in love so much with this man's work has been a huge surprise for me. And it's so funny because I get the funniest looks when I'm in there shopping for him. Just recently, I was at Half Price Books and there was an older gentleman in there. He's looking through the Westerns, and I walk up and I stand right next to him and I'm looking at him too, and he's like, do you read these, young lady? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay. So it's been such an experience. I get a lot of very interesting interactions with older gentlemen and everything, and a few of them have given me some recommendations for other authors to try, and a lot of them have been like, good choice with starting with Louis L'Amour. That's a great choice to start with, so at least I know I'm on like the right track. A book that has made you cry, I would have to say I haven't had many books this year that have made me cry, which I do have to say is kind of like, because I love crying. Like, when I read my books, I love when a book can make me so emotional that I cry. And it's just because I think that is one of the hardest emotions to properly depict in a book. And a lot of authors overdo it to the point where you're like, okay, you're trying too hard. But other authors, they get it just right. But I do have to say the one that I did do some crying in was, where is it? Oh my gosh. In The Remarkable Inventions of Walter Mortensen. And that is actually this one. It's a middle grade book. It is a story that follows a mother and her son and their diverging paths, as you could say, and mother trying to come to terms with allowing her son to grow up and do things that could potentially, harm, and also both of them coming to terms with the loss of father/husband. And then there is also another death that kind of happens, and you're just kind of like, oh, okay. It's very much just a very beautiful, heartfelt story that just kind of covers and tackles so many different topics in regards to growing up and letting your children grow up, but also still trying to make sure that they're safe in the process of that. It was just a beautiful story. And that one, I would probably have to say, that is, from what I can remember, and just like kind of like going through a like really quick, brief like rundown of these books, this is probably the only one that I have cried in this year. And I think it's just because a lot of the stuff I read just really haven't hit like that kind of moment. This one does have like a moment towards the end where I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, but like it's one of those like ending closing scenes where you're like, oh my gosh, finally, and it's like it ends on just like a very sweet moment that just kind of like brings you to those emotions, but like doesn't necessarily make you cry. Let's see, a book that made you happy. Let's give it to The Last Kids on Earth series that I have been reading, which is this series by Max Brailer. This one has just been so fun. This is book 6. This is where I'm currently at in the series. I have just been reading these almost back to back to back. I've been kind of reading this series at the same time that I read like all the Louis L'Amours, and it's fun. It's silly. It has its moments where it kind of like delves into some slight emotional situations with like our main character and some of his personal struggles. It doesn't focus too much on them. It does kind of like quickly move on from them, but overall like the series is just so fun, and I get a lot of joy out of reading this one. And then, what books do you want to read by the end of the year? I already put out a video talking about some books that I wanted to read before the year was up, and some of those would be the sequel to Ordinary Monsters, the final book in the Bloodsworn Saga by John Gwynne. There's like 3 other books in that video, which I don't remember what they are, but like there's at least 5 books, but those are 2 that I can think of right off the top of my head. Oh, Jane Eyre, that's another one I would like to try and get read this year. She's right there. So there's a few, but it's also one of those things where if I don't get them read, then I don't get them read, I have been really just loving and trucking along with these Louis L'Amours, and I don't really see that stopping anytime soon. So, yeah. that is my check-in for the mid-year freak out tag. The video turned out slightly longer than I had anticipated, so I do apologize for that, but sometimes I just gotta ramble, you know? And like I said, I wanted to be transparent. I wanted you guys to fully understand how I've been able to accomplish reading so much like I have. And yeah. Oh, and one more thing before people are like, oh, well, you probably listen to your audiobooks at 2 times or 3 times speed. I listen at 1.25. That is what I listen to. And that's only like 1 notch higher than 1. And yeah. I don't go pretty much. I used to go up to 1.5 and 2 and all that stuff, but I don't do that anymore. 1.25 is what sounds like a normal cadence for me. And so that is what I listen to all of my audiobooks at, 1.25. Okay, so yeah, that's everything. So glad we got to catch up. So, leave me your thoughts on what's been your best book of this year so far. I would love to hear what has been your favorite read, and like I said, if you ever get the bug to try some Westerns, try some Louis L'Amour. That guy knows what he's doing. So until next time, bye guys.